In a regular Japanese city, all the lights suddenly go out. A girl called Kana is woken up by a small maid. Kana is confused because she's in a room that looks like it's from medieval times, but she doesn't know how she got there. She's surprised that she can move her body freely. Opening a video game-like item box, Kana gives the little maid, who is called Lit, a sweet. Immediately after, she notices there shouldn't be item boxes in real life. Looking at herself, she realizes she's inside her favorite video game called Liedel, and she looks the same as the character she created, a female high elf. Feeling hungry, she decides not to worry about her situation right now and descends the stairs to the inn's mess hall, where soup and bread are waiting for her. She has only eaten liquid food through an IV drip for a while, so when she tastes the bread, it's delicious to her. Seeing her enjoy the food so much, the innkeeper called Morel tells her she can have as much as she wants. After she has filled her stomach, Kana recognizes where she is. From having played the game she's in, she knows she's in a village on the border of two kingdoms, Fels and Griskello. Talking to Morel, she finds out that the village was prosperous until the two kingdoms combined into a single kingdom called Felskello 200 years ago. In the past, 7 nations used to fight amongst each other all the time, so God chose leaders among the people. Those leaders made 3 kingdoms out of the 7 that existed until then. Hearing all this, Kana realizes that 200 years have passed in Liedel's world since she has last played the video game. When she takes out some money to pay for her stay at the inn, it turns out that the silver coin's value went up compared to 200 years ago, so now they're worth a lot more. Going back to her room, Kana opens up her status window and finds out her level is 1100. She is completely overpowered, just like her character in the game was. She also has a green floating orb called Key, and she summons him. Key then tells her that she has been cut off from the hospital system and Liedel's master system because a power outage happened after she went to bed. Hearing this, Kana thinks that her life support must have turned off. Since she was very sick in real life, she realizes her physical body has died, but her mind has somehow escaped into the video game. Completely listless, she spends her time not doing anything until she snaps out of it at nighttime. Having calmed down, she decides to look for other players. While Kana is casting a spell to light up her room, Lit sees her and is surprised because she has never seen magic like most other villagers. Since it's dinner time, Kana follows Lit to the mess hall. This time, the mess hall is full of cheerful villagers. A girl called Lewin approaches Kana and introduces herself as Lit's sister and Morel's oldest daughter. After Kana has finished her dinner, Lewin approaches her to talk. Kana asks her if she has seen a silver tower, but as soon as she says it, Morel and her daughters get scared. There's a legend saying that an evil person called the Silver Ring Witch lives there. Hearing this, Kana excuses herself and runs back to her room. It turns out that Kana lived in the Silver Tower, and the Silver Ring Witch is a nickname she had 200 years ago. She got the nickname because she used to bully other players in the past, and now she's embarrassed about it. After she goes to sleep, 2 people break into her room intending to rob her. However, Kana has a pervert blocker that automatically summons a lightning spirit once a threat approaches her, so the robbers are scared off by a lion-shaped spirit. The next morning, Kana wakes up and uses her eagle eye skill to see the Silver Tower in the distance. Out of sight of Morel and Lit, she activates her guardian ring and teleports herself to the tower. On top of the tower, there's a huge stone gear with a human-like face. That's the guardian of the tower, and he immediately recognizes Kana, mad because she left him alone for 200 years. He tells her that someone called Scarbo came by 60 years before to try and get in touch with her, but Kana doesn't remember who that is. When the guardian calls her a senile old hag, Kana gets angry and threatens him with a powerful-looking staff. The guardian quickly apologizes, scared of her, and reveals that Scarbo is Kana's son. Suddenly, Kana remembers that she made Scargo as an NPC, along with a sister and a little brother for him. After she gives the Guardian some magic points, he tells her that the other Guardian towers stopped functioning too and asks her to check on them. Kana agrees, and using some skills to increase her speed and agility, runs back to the village. By sunset, she's completely exhausted and decides to take a break. Suddenly, she hears someone struggling. Following the sound, she sees someone being attacked by a horned bear. Defeating the bear with a single dropkick, Kana saves the man. Introducing himself as Lauder, the man thanks her, and they return to the village with the horned bear's body. Having cooked the bear's meat, the whole village eats together cheerfully and thanks Kana. After Lauder offers her some wine, Kana drinks alcohol for the first time in her life and quickly gets drunk. The next morning, Kana wakes up with a terrible hangover and decides to never drink again. Hearing a commotion, she decides to check it out. Outside, a trading caravan has arrived after being attacked by ogres, with one of the people seriously injured. To everyone's astonishment, Kana approaches the man and uses an advanced spell to heal him completely. Before she leaves, Akabol, called Alina, who is in charge of the caravan, thanks her and they end up talking at the inn. When Kana says that she's looking for his son called Scargo, everyone at the inn is surprised. It turns out that Scargo is an extremely influential high priest in the royal capital. Only the king and the prime minister are more powerful than him. Joining Alina and his caravan, Kana decides to travel to the royal capital and find Scargo. Lit doesn't want her to go, but Kana promises her she'll come back, which calms her down. She gives the little maid a star-shaped hair ornament as a parting gift, which is the first item she's ever created in Lidao. She also reveals to her that she's more than capable of taking care of herself since she's actually the Silver Ring Witch, but tells her to keep it a secret. Before the trading caravan leaves, a man called Arbiter introduces himself to Kana. He's the leader of the Flame Spears, who are mercenaries guarding Alina's caravan. When the caravan arrives in the royal capital of Felskylo, Kana is impressed by the beautiful city built on the water. After she pays for a room in an inn that Alina recommended to her, she heads toward the church to find Scargo. However, it turns out she can't see him without an appointment. While she's thinking about what to do, Kana checks out a shipyard and sees that her younger son, a dwarf called Kartats, is working there. Kartats welcomes her with open arms, overjoyed to see his mother after a long time, but he's embarrassed when she pats his head. He tells her that her daughter, Mai Mai, is the headmaster of the Royal Academy. While Kartats is trying to get an appointment with Scargo for her, Kana visits the city's Adventurers Guild and registers there. Looking at the various quests, she sees one she can complete immediately. There's someone who needs any kind of potion, so she takes out a powerful high potion she made before and gets 2 silver coins for it from the guild's receptionist. While Kana is leaving the guild, a cheerful knight called Agaido and a shy mage called Lanti stop her. Recognizing she's skilled, Agaido asks her to help them with something, and she agrees. She ends up teaming up with Lanti, who tells her they're looking for a boy with red hair. Soon they notice the boy trying to rescue a cat hanging off a clothesline. He catches the cat, but slips and starts falling toward the ground. Luckily, before he falls, Kana saves him with a floating spell. Lanti is approaching the boy, but he quickly runs away again. Increasing her agility and speed with magic, Kana runs after the boy and catches up with him easily. However, he doesn't give up and seals a boat to get away. Kana then uses a skill that allows her to walk on water and catches him in the end. At sunset, Agaido comes back and gives Kana a large reward. It turns out the boy is actually a runaway prince and Kana calls him Primo. That night, Kana returns to her inn. Apparently, everyone there heard about her race with Primo and they want to party with her and hear the story. Even though Kana swore that she won't ever drink again, she doesn't want to disappoint the others, so she reluctantly drinks with them. Somewhere else, Kartats tells his siblings that Kana arrived at the capital. Scargo is furious because his guards didn't let her see him, but Mai Mai calms him down. The next day, Kana has a hangover and regrets drinking the previous night. While she's walking through the city, she realizes that she has become famous for being able to walk on the river. Meeting up with the line and Arbiter, Kana asks them if they know about any towers like the Silver Tower and finds out that there is one in the kingdom of Helspur. Later, having gotten an invitation to the Royal Academy, Kana heads there. She comes across Lanti, who studies there, and she takes her to the headmaster's office. There, Kana meets Mai Mai, her daughter. Mai Mai is excited to see her mother again, but Kana scolds her for acting immaturely in front of Lanti, her student. After Lanti leaves, Mai Mai introduces her mother to Lopus, her husband, and a professor of alchemy at the academy. It turns out that it was one of his students who put up the request for a potion in the Adventurers Guild, and Kana ended up giving him one of hers. Lopus says that the potion she made is basically an ancient artifact that no one knows how to make anymore. That's why he asks her to demonstrate to his class how to make such a potion, and she agrees. However, after her demonstration, nobody completely understands how she did it. That night, Kana visits the Adventurers Guild and accepts a quest to exorcise a ghost in the Colosseum. The guild's receptionist warns her that many people failed because they got scared by the ghost, but Kana decides to check it out anyway. Soon, she arrives in the Colosseum and decides to spend a few nights there to see what's going on. The Colosseum has existed before Felskylo was established, and nobody knows who built it. Kana takes out a powerful sword called Eternal Flame and prepares to fight if someone attacks her. She also summons a friendly Cerberus called Cerberwolf. Having made a bonfire in the middle of the Colosseum, she starts cooking while Cerberwolf is patrolling the area. After some time, Cerberwolf finds Primo, who turns out to have followed Kana because he was curious about her. Kana isn't mad and lets him eat with her. By nightfall, Kana has searched the entire Colosseum, but she saw nothing suspicious. Suddenly, a strange apparition appears and she prepares to fight. However, she finds that the apparition isn't evil. When her guardian ring starts glowing, she puts it on and chants a spell. which transports her to a room with a potted plant in the center of it. Infusing it with her magic, she revives the withered plant, which causes the whole room to light up. The apparition from before comes back and transforms into a featureless humanoid being who welcomes Kana to the tower he's guarding. His master is someone called Lord Kyotaro, and Kana remembers him from playing Lidale in the past. However, the Guardian reveals that Kyotaro has given up on his dream and left forever. Hearing that story, Kana realizes that when she left, Lidale's online service ended and all the players left too. When Kana returned after 200 years passed in the game, the Guardian of Kyotaro's castle sensed her ring. He didn't have much magic left, so he only appeared as a ghost-like being until he found Kana, who revived him. Now that his real master is gone, he recognizes her as his new master and gives her Kyotaro's ring. Before she leaves, Kana tells him she'll be back to visit sometime. In the morning, the red-haired boy is found by some knights. Lying in her bed, depressed, Kana completely forgot about him. Having realized that all the players she knew have left Lidale, she has holed herself up in her room. A couple of days later, a Guido visits Scargo and tells him that his mother hasn't left her room in a long time. Worried about Kana, Scargo immediately runs off to see if she's alright and literally crashes into her room. Seeing that her son has become extremely flamboyant and weird, Kana uppercuts him. Refusing to see anyone, she casts a barrier spell around her. The next day, Kana's children talk about how to get Kana out of her isolation. Since she's a high-class mage, they can't easily break her isolation spell. Suddenly, Scargo speaks Japan and says that he thinks Kana hit him because he didn't look legit enough, so he changes his clothes and decides to go visit her again. Getting mad at her brother's display of stupidity, Mei beats him up. Sneaking out of the room, Kartats decides to visit Kana alone. While heading to the inn she's staying in, he sees her happily eating some meat from a nearby food stand. Kana cheerfully greets him and reveals that she left her isolation when he got hungry. She decided that there was no point being sad or worrying about something she can't change. Changing the topic, Kana says she decided to completely change Scargo's personality in order to make him less weird. Hearing this, Kartats is outraged, telling her she shouldn't do that because Scargo has done a lot of good for the country and convinces her to change her mind. Hugging Kartats, Kana realizes that even if all her player friends are gone, she still has her family. Kartats then takes her to his siblings, who are still fighting. Calmly taking out a potion out of her item box, Kana throws it inside the room. The potion explodes, breaking up the siblings' fight. Kana then enters the room and apologizes for ignoring them before, and they apologize to her for making a big deal out of the situation. Suddenly, Kana changes her demeanor and scolds Scargo and Mei then harshly, telling them they shouldn't fight, while Kartats escapes back to his job. Later, Alina visits Kana and asks to hire her as his caravan's bodyguard on their way to the kingdom of Helshper. The way there is dangerous because of bandits who are starting using an old rundown fort nearby as their base. Hearing him out, Kana decides to accept his proposal. Before she leaves with the caravan, her children and Lanti see her off. Mei asks her to deliver a letter to a person named Carrick who lives in Helshper. While they're traveling, the caravan finds its way to a river, but they're forced to stop. There used to be a bridge there, but it was destroyed 6 months before. Now the caravan people want Kana to use her power to bring them over the river. Kana is surprised, but she gets the idea to cast a water-walking spell on everyone, and they start crossing the river. Suddenly, a monster emerges from the river and eats one of the horses, but everyone else manages to escape to safety. However, the caravan is now one horse short. Looking at Kana, the others want her to help them somehow. Using a spell, Kana summons a centaur and Cerberwolf, surprising and scaring everyone. Getting an idea, Kana summons a huge but cute pig instead. This is fine because the pig isn't scary, so the caravan departs again, with the pig pulling one of the carts and the centaur and Cerberwolf traveling behind everyone else. While they're traveling, Kana hears a voice telling her there's danger ahead. Everyone stops, having noticed something suspicious about the checkpoint they were supposed to spend the night at. Suddenly, a mage appears and threatens to attack the caravan with his group of bandits if they don't give him their cargo. However, the centaur and Cerberwolf force the bandits hidden among the trees to reveal themselves, and the mage is surprised. Soon, together with the flame spears, Kana defeats all the bandits except the mage. Desperately, the mage casts a huge fireball spell and throws it at Kana, but she takes it head-on and stays completely unharmed. Taking a bow, she fires a powerful ice arrow at the mage and defeats him. After the battle, Kana is worried because she killed someone, but Arbiter cheers her up. The caravan people are spending the night camping outside and talking cheerfully. Kana realizes that she now lives in a reality where she has to fight and people have to die without the possibility of being revived. The next day, the caravan arrives in Helshper, a city looking like a mix of eastern and western buildings. Elena takes Kana to Sakaya, the biggest merchant business in the land. That's where Carrick lives, the person Mame asks Kana to bring a letter to. At Sakaya, Kana and Elena are welcomed by Carrick. After she gives Carrick Mame's letter, Kana is surprised when he bows deeply to her and calls her grandmother. It turns out that Carrick is actually Mame's son, and Kana is surprised. Excited, Carrick wants to prepare the most luxurious room for Kana, but Kana tells him she's going to stay at a normal inn. She's mad because Mame didn't tell her that Carrick is her grandson. Later, Kana meets Hellsper's knights. Their leader suddenly bows to her, revealing that she's her granddaughter and Carrick's sister, Karina. It turns out that Mame told Karina that Kana is a brutal woman who would tear even her own family members limb from limb if they angered her. Kana tries explaining to the others that it's not true, but they don't believe her. Getting furious, Kana ends up burying everyone in mounds of snow she summoned. After that, Kana visits Hellsper's Adventurers Guild. Looking for quests, she meets two other adventurers and asks them about a castle in the middle of the lake. The adventurers tell her that it's called Crescent Moon Castle and that the bandits are currently using it as their base. Apparently, it also has an ancient treasure room in a place called the Hall of the Guardian. Hearing this, Kana decides to visit the castle. After she leaves, one of the adventurers thinks he has seen her before somewhere. Kana decides to visit Sakaya again to make up with Carrick. He's terrified at first, but they start getting along quickly. Kana asks him about the Crescent Moon Castle and tells him she's sure it's a guardian tower. Hearing this, Carrick is surprised, saying that there are only 13 guardian towers in the whole world and gets excited because they're usually full of treasure. However, Kana wants to visit the guardian of the tower and reinforce the tower's defenses instead of plundering it. Carrick warns her about the bandits there, but Kana thinks she can handle them. If she defeats the bandits, Carrick could open one of his trade routes again, so he gets interested. However, Kana tells him not to tell anyone that she's going to defeat them because she doesn't want any more attention. The two of them come up with a plan. Since there is a fortress that's blocking the road to the lake and the castle, Carrick wants to help Kana infiltrate it. He's going to make her pose as someone from Sakaya delivering goods to the knights at the fort. Karina is also there at the moment, so she will let her through. The next day, when she's out of everyone's sight, Kana summons a huge crab and quickly rides on its back toward the knight's fortress. When she arrives, Karina lets her in, but she's surprised at how fast she came. Suddenly, a man comes in and tells them they're being attacked by 9 rock golems. Karina tells Kana to stay in the tent and prepares to fight with the other knights. Kana thinks about helping them, but doesn't want to stand out like before. Outside, the fortress archers attack the golems, but their attacks are ineffective. They only have 20 knights, and Karina thinks they don't stand a chance. Even so, she leads the knights into a charge toward the golems. As expected, the knights can't do anything against their powerful enemies. Karina then uses a fireblade skill and manages to knock one of them down. However, she's completely exhausted after using it, and the golem gets back up. Suddenly, Kana appears and tells the knights to leave the fighting to her. With a huge energy beam from her sword, Kana easily defeats one of the golems. Using another skill, she decimates the others with a single attack. Afterwards, the knights can't believe what happened, and Kana tells them to gather the loot, but not to mention her in their reports. Leaving her donkey and cart at the fortress, she sets out toward the Crescent Moon Castle. After she leaves, Karina warns the knights that they should listen to what she says because Kana is a monster who could level a whole city with a single spell. While she's camping outside, Kana realizes that the rock golems were too strong to be in that area, and that a powerful player must have summoned them, even though she thought she was the only player left in Liddell. The next morning, Kana approaches the Crescent Moon Castle and sees a group of bandits in front of it. She summons a group of brown dragons who immediately defeat them. Suddenly, a strong-looking player called Louvrogue appears. Kana tries convincing him he's not playing a game anymore and that he's killing real people, but Louvrogue doesn't believe her. Getting angry, Kana takes out his staff and activates all her battle skills at once. Louvrogue attacks her overconfidently, but realizes he can't harm her at all. Using a skill called Destruction Hurricane, he attacks once again, but Kana simply creates a hole and makes him fall into it. Louvrogue gets mad and Kana starts thinking he's actually just a kid. Using different magic skills, she electrocutes him and then freezes him in place. Hitting him over the head with her staff, she tries proving to him that he can feel pain normally even though he thinks he's in a game. After she tells him he can't revive if he dies, Louvrogue finally believes her. He starts begging her to spare him and tells her he really is just a kid. However, Kana threatens to kill him anyway as retribution for causing so much trouble with his bandits. Suddenly, an arrow stops her in her tracks and she sees that Karina fired it. Karina wants to give Louvrogue a trial and punish him, but Kana doesn't think she has a chance against him. When she sees how serious Karina is, Kana puts a collar on Livrov that lowers his power to 10% and lets Karina take him away. After Karina leaves, Kana prepares to teleport herself to the Crescent Moon Castle, but suddenly a hole opens up under her and she falls into it. She finds herself in a rundown castle and finds a skull the crown sitting on a throne. She infuses it with magic, but nothing happens. Next, she tries infusing the throne with magic and a female skeleton assembles from the bones on the ground, together with a crown and a cape. She is the guardian of this guardian tower. The arrogant skeleton queen reveals that her master is someone called Opus. Recognizing the name, Kana remembers that Opus is a ruthless player who helped her get stronger in the past. She thinks that if the bandits entered the tower, they would have all died from the traps set by him. The skeleton queen gives Kane the tower's guardian ring and a book, telling her Opus has entrusted her to give those items to her specifically. Opening the book, Aina sees a small fairy inside and recognizes her from somewhere. The fairy happily sits on her shoulder, but is completely mute. Kana doesn't know why Opus gave her the fairy, but she trusts him and takes her with her. Before she leaves, she tells the skeleton guardian to contact her if she runs out of magic. Having teleported herself and the little fairy back to Sakia, Kana reunites with Carrick and Karina, who give her a large bag full of silver coins as a reward for everything she has done for the town. The kingdom wanted to thank her publicly, but Karina told the king that Kana doesn't want to attract any attention. After returning to Felskilo, Kana discovers that Kartats has repaired the bridge that was destroyed before. Now that the bandits' leader has been defeated, it was safe there again. In order to take care of the rest of the bandits, the knights from Felskilo and Helspur decided to form a special task force. Once Kana gets her reward and parts from the caravan people, she visits the Adventurers Guild. There she picks a quest at random. It turns out to be a quest given by a high-end restaurant who needs horned bear meat. While she's leaving the guild, Kana meets Lanti, together with a hooded girl. Lanti introduces Kana to her classmate at the Royal Academy called Mai and mysteriously asks her if the two of them can follow her for a while. It turns out that Mia is looking for a bodyguard because she ran away from home. Kana agrees to be a bodyguard and takes the girls with her into the forest to hunt a horned bear. In the forest, Lanti and Mai are impressed by Kana, who is asking the trees to move out of their way. That night, the three girls sit around a campfire and eat. While Kana is relaxed, Lanti and Mai are afraid of Cerberwolf, who Kana summoned to protect them from the forest's beasts. Suddenly, Kana goes away somewhere, telling the girls she's going to prepare something. Hearing strange sounds, the curious girls find Kana near a hot springs bath she has created using her magic. The three girls end up enjoying a bath together and Maya reveals that she's in love with Scargo. While they're talking, Lanti accidentally reveals that Maya is actually a princess and that she ran away from home. After their bath, Kana summons a huge white dragon and tells the girls to lean against its soft fur. The girls are terrified at first, but Kana convinces them that she has completely tamed it. Both Lanti and Maya rarely go deep into the forest, so they enjoy looking at the beautiful night sky and have fun talking together. The next morning, Kana kills a horned bear with ease and Maya can't believe it, since it would usually take several nights to achieve that. At the Adventurers Guild, an armored man called Coral is waiting for Kana to return from her quest. Suddenly, a white dragoid enters the guild building. He announces that he's looking for someone. Coral recognizes him as Shining Saber from the Silver Moon Horseman Guild, and the dragoid is surprised. It turns out that they were together in a party in Lidl while it was a normal video game. After Lidl's online service was shut down, Coral found himself in the game world somehow, without any admins or his former guild members. Now he's happy that he has finally ran into a familiar face after 10 full years of surviving alone in the world. Similarly, Shining Saber also found himself in the game world, but it only took 3 years for him to find Coral. Meanwhile, in the Royal Academy, Lopez tries recreating the potion Kana made before, but can't do it. He throws his failed potion into a hole full of garbage, and there's a strange reaction. Out of the hole, a gigantic monster penguin emerges. While Kana, Lanti, and Mai are traveling toward the town at their leisure, Kana's fairy warns her about something bad happening in the city. Listening to her signs, Kana summons a huge white wolf and tells the girls to climb on top of it. In the city, the monster penguin causes a huge panic. Even though he knows they would need at least 200 players to defeat such a monster, Shining Saber refuses to run away. Seeing his determination, Coral decides to join him and the two charge for the penguin. They both attack with their strongest attack skills and manage to knock the penguin on its back and into the water. However, before it falls, the penguin hits them and they end up falling into a warehouse. Coral has less than 20% of his health left, but still wants to continue fighting. When the penguin gets up, Shining Saber realizes that the monster hasn't lost much health from their attacks. Suddenly, a huge boulder flies overhead and hits the penguin, knocking him down again. Seeing this, Kana's children immediately realize that their mother has arrived. With a combination of incredibly powerful lightning and flame magic, Kana burns the penguin monster until nothing is left except a stone that falls into the water. Seeing this, Shining Saber and Coral recognize it as an attack that only a player could do. After the battle, Kana investigates and realizes that Lopus accidentally combined all the ingredients necessary to summon an event monster. It turns out that Shining Saber is the leader of the Royal Knights, and he ends up taking Mai with him. Approaching Kana, Scargo brings her the stone that the penguin dropped after dying, which is actually a rare mineral. Coral and Shining Saber aren't skilled enough to make something with it, so they give it to Kana. However, Kana offers to make something for Coral as thanks for fighting the penguin, since she already has all the weapons she would ever need. Coral is honored and tells Kana that he and Shining Saber need to talk to her the following day. After Coral leaves, Kana asks Kartats to take him to the restaurant where she needs to bring the horned bear meat so she can complete her quest. The next day, Kana meets up with Coral and Shining Saber in the Colosseum. When Shining Saber tells her he and Coral used to be in the Silver Moon Horseman Guild, Kana remembers that's the same guild where Kyotaro was a guild master. She's surprised and tells them that she is also a player that used to be in a guild called Cream Cheese. The two are surprised because Cream Cheese was one of the strongest guilds in the entire game. They even recognize she's the Silver Ring Witch. However, she threatens to crush them if they call her by that name one more time. She then takes out the sword she made for Coral. Seeing its stats, Coral realizes it's the best sword in the game and Shining Saber is jealous. Getting serious, Kana asks the two if they know why Leadale ended its online service. They tell her that there was a rumor about someone dying while playing the game, which could have actually been Kana. 6 months after that rumor started going around, Leadale's service ended. Kana shows her fairy to the two players and tells them that Opus gave her to her. Both Coral and Shining Saber have bad memories of Opus beating them up with his traps. Kana then asks them if they know anything about the Guardian Towers, but Coral tells her he's willing to share his info only if she trades one of her skills for it. It turns out he doesn't have a recovery magic skill, and Kana agrees to give it to him if his info is useful to her. When Coral tells her that there's a Guardian Tower in the middle of the sea near a fishing village, Kana is satisfied and gives him a simple kind of recovery magic skill. After the three part ways, Kana notices someone sneaking behind her. She hits the person with full force, but it turns out it's Scargo. He saw her with 2 men and thought they were a threat to her, so he wanted to rescue her. When Kana threatens him with her staff, Scargo apologizes to her for his obsessive behavior. He then invites her for tea, and he's overjoyed when she agrees to come. Later, Kana prepares to go look for the Guardian Tower called the Palace of the Dragon King. She intends to travel with the combined forces of Felskalo and Helshper, who are going to attack the bandits in 2 days. Hearing this, Mayame tells Kana she should settle down sometime, and Kana starts thinking about it. She wants to settle down in the village she first woke up in. Sometime later, Kana visits her own Guardian Tower and her gear-faced guardian. She asks him what happened 200 years ago, and the gear tells her that the only thing he knows is that all masters suddenly left their guardians. After that, Kana visits the village she first woke up in and reunites with Lit and Morel, who are happy to see her. It has been 3 months since Kana was last at the village, and Morel wants to throw a big party for her. The next morning, Kana wakes up after the party, hungover. She swears she'll never drink alcohol again. Hearing a commotion outside, she asks the villagers what they're talking about. They have been hearing singing from the well at night, and they're scared, not knowing what it is. Kana offers to check it out for them since the villagers have done so much for her. She summons 2 fish made of water to guide her, and she transforms her clothes into a wetsuit. When she jumps into the well together with the fish guide her through a deep underwater cave complex. In the end, they emerge in a cavern. Kana then summons a bunch of flowers that light the way for her and reveal a terrified mermaid. After Kana calms her down, the mermaid introduces herself as Minimally and explains that she's lost. A week ago, she was sucked into an underwater vortex, and now she can't find her way back home. She has been singing the song of her homeland every night out of sadness because she can't return home. Getting an idea, Kana invites Mimily to live in the village. The mermaid is confused but goes along with her to the surface. On the surface, the villagers are surprised to see a mermaid, but agree to take care of her until she finds her way back home. While she's staying at the village, Mimily is going to live in the public bath. Seeing that the villagers have accepted her, Mimily is happy. Leaving Mimily with the villagers, Kana says she has to go back to the royal capital, but that she's going to look for Mimily's village as soon as she gets the chance to. Parting with Lit and the others once again, Kana departs toward the city. On her way back, she meets up with the knights of Felskalo and Shining Saber. To thank her for defeating the event monster from before, Shining Saber lets her travel with them part of the way and picks her up like a princess. Once he realizes what he's doing, they both get embarrassed and the other knights tease them for being boyfriend and girlfriend. When night falls, the knights and Kena camp out and she makes delicious dinner for everyone. They've never eaten anything as delicious as the soup she made. Shining Saber once again says that Kena isn't his girlfriend, but nobody believes him. For the next few days, the knights continue their journey. The night before they arrive at the fishing village Kena is going to, she gives Shining Saber a cooking skill, so he can make delicious food for his subordinates in the future. The next day, Kena splits up from the knights who are going ahead to fight the bandits. Left alone, she finds her way to the fishing village, but she feels that something is wrong. When she arrives, she sees the village covered in fog. Getting cautious, she summons a centaur called Hyglund, takes out her sword. The two of them enter the fog, but they can't see anything. Suddenly, Hyvel starts losing health points and Kena realizes the fog is dangerous. Suddenly, a zombie attacks and Hyla is defeated. Since the zombie is of a high level, Kena concludes it must have been created by another player. Using a light spell, she defeats it easily. Advancing through the fishing village, Kena realizes that all the villagers must have been turned into zombies. Suddenly, she senses someone approaching her and attacks. However, it turns out the attacker is a regular human and she stops. The adventurer doesn't know what happened to the village and Kena then remembers that she has seen her and her Dragoid friend before in the Adventurers Guild in Helspur. The adventurer takes Kena to the basement of a barn and introduces her to her companion, a Dragoid called Exis. Looking at her stats and sword, Exis realizes he knows Kena from somewhere. When he tells her that he used to be called Tartarus, Kena remembers him. They were both in the Cream Cheese Guild together. Back then, Exis was a scrawny magic user, but now he's a Dragoid fighter. Exis' companion introduces herself as Kolkit. Kena suddenly realizes that she's actually a female character being played by a man and Kolkit gets embarrassed. The two of them have been in the game for 2 years and right now they're in the village on a quest to investigate why there wasn't any fish coming into the market recently. Exis says that they discovered that once you enter the fog, you turn into a zombie, but players seem to be an exception to that. After they've arrived, they hold up in the barn together with a single survivor they found, a young girl called Luca. Now they don't know how to get her out of the village without her becoming a zombie. Kena thinks the fog was caused by a monster, so they should find it and go rid of it. Since they can't leave Luca alone, Kena decides to do something about it and takes out 2 bells. When Exis sees them, he's surprised because that kind of bell is a reward for playing the game for 10,000 hours. Ringing one of the bells, Kena summons an elegant catboy butler called Roxelius and tells him to look after Luca while they're outside. Before they go out, Kena conducts a search among available quests and figures out what quest they're caught up in. The bosses they need to defeat are a ghost ship and a pirate captain named Terror Skeleton. Having found the ghost ship, Kena tells the others they need to defeat the pirate captain at the core of the ship to stop the huge number of skeletons that are on it. Charging at the ship, the 3 adventurers jump onto its deck and start fighting the numerous skeletons. After a short fight, Exis manages to defeat the captain easily. As soon as he's defeated, all the other skeletons fall apart and the ship disappears, which clears the fog. However, now they have to solve the problem of what to do with Luca. They take her out of the barn and gather around a bonfire. Kena offers to take her in and Luca instantly accepts. The next day, Kena leaves Luca with the others while she searches for the palace of the Dragon King. Summoning a blue dragon, Kena rides it into the ocean's depths. While they're swimming with the fishes, the palace comes into sight. While she's exploring the palace, Kena orders the dragon to look for the mermaid village. Inside the beautiful underwater palace, Kena channels her magic points into a large closed lotus flower. Opening up, it reveals a huge friendly pink frog, who is the tower's guardian. Kena is afraid of frogs, but she does her best to remain calm. Reluctantly, she tells the frog that she's its new master. The frog accepts her and gives her a guardian ring. After she rejoins the blue dragon, Kena finds that he unfortunately couldn't find the mermaid village. Back on the surface, Kena adds Kolke and Exis as friends and parts ways with them. Next, Kena decides to go back to the village together with Luca and Roxelius. When they arrive at Fell Sky Level, Kena buys Luca a new dress and then introduces her to her 3 children. Afterwards, she shows Luca around the capital. When they arrive at the Royal Academy and meet Mai and Lanti, the 2 of them are surprised that Kena has adopted a child. Kena announces that she's going to build a house near her tower and settle down there together with Luca. Next, Kena visits Scargo. He's overjoyed that he has a new little sister, but Luca is a little intimidated by his enthusiasm. When Kena notices that, she forces Scargo to apologize. Scargo gives Luca some cookies and they start getting along. After that, Kena meets up with Kartats and introduces him to Luca too. When she tells him her plans, the dwarf gives Kena a lot of lumber to build her house with. Next, she meets up with Eline and Agaido. who are disappointed that she's moving away. Elena wanted her to become his trading caravan's personal bodyguard, and Guido wanted her to join the Flame Spears. Elena tells her to visit his shop if she needs anything. At sunset, Luca falls asleep from the eventful day, and Kana leaves her with Roxelius while she goes to Elena's shop. In front of the shop, she sees a huge gaudy sign showing Elena winking. Inside, there's everything an adventurer might need, from weapons to cooking supplies. Wanting to buy a carriage, Kana looks at the selection and notices that the carriage she was traveling in with Elena is there too. Suddenly, the shop attendant recognizes her and tells her she doesn't have to pay for the carriage. Elena ordered her to give Kana's first purchase to her for free. It also turns out the attendant is Elena's wife called Armuna. In the end, Kana gets the carriage and stores it inside her item box. Parting ways with Armuna, she stays at an inn with Luca and Roxelius. Since Roxelius' home has disappeared ever since Legal's service ended, Kana offers him to live with her and look after Luca. He gladly accepts, but asks Kana to summon Roxine too, her other attendant. Even though he's always arguing with her, he thinks it would be good for Luca to have a female attendant too. Kana accepts, excited about having one more member in her household. Taking a red bell, she rings it and a capture maid appears. When Kana tells her she wants her to take care of Luca, Roxine gets excited. However, Roxine and Roxelius then start fighting, and Kana hits them on their heads, warning them no to set a bad example for Luca. The next day, Kana creates a self-driving carriage and departs with the others toward the village. After a while, they arrive. Morel is happy to see them, and Lit immediately makes friends with Luca. They meet Kana's attendants, who once again start arguing. Next, Kana checks on Mimily and discovers that she has started a laundry washing business, and she's happy. As always, Morel and the villagers throw another party for Kana because she decided to move to the village. The next morning, Kana Plus wakes up with a bad hangover and once again tells herself she'll never drink again. This time, Luca brings her some water, worried for her. The attendants start fighting, accusing each other for letting Kana get drunk. Suddenly, Lit appears and tells Kana that Morel has some good news for her. Outside, Morel and the villagers tell Kana they decided to give her a plot of land where she can build her house. They tell her they want to have more parties, and Kana is thankful but horrified. The next morning, Kana wakes up with a hangover once again. Her attendants once again haven't been able to stop her from drinking, and they're arguing. Sometime later, Kana finally starts building her house. She selects her crafting skill and finds the largest house template possible. Next, she takes out the lumber Kartats gave her and summons an earth spirit. Using the spirit's power, she makes a foundation for her house and then uses the lumber to build the whole house with incredible speed, which results in a large modern house. Taking Luca and her attendants inside, Kana shows them around their beautiful new home. Everyone got their own room, and there is a kitchen, a cellar, and a large combined living and dining room. When the villagers arrive to offer their help with the house, they're surprised that the whole house is already finished. Instead, Morel and the others decorate the house with numerous flowers. In the village, that's a tradition when a new house is built. Sometime later, Kana, her attendants, Mimily, and Luca bathe together in a bath Kana made for the mermaid. Happy with her life in the village, Mimily tells Kana she doesn't want to go back to the mermaid village after all. She admits that she only had an older sister there who she rarely saw, and she felt like she was a burden to everyone. When she ran away from home one day, she got caught in that underwater vortex. Now she has a home where everyone accepts her, and she's even useful to the villagers. Sometime later, Kana starts teaching both Luca and Lit how to read and write. After their lesson, the two girls play together, while Kana enjoys some tea on her patio. She thinks how happy and peaceful her life is now. She had to stay at a hospital from a very young age, so the only place she could be free is in Lidale, the VR MMO she loved. She even died inside of it, which caused her to be transported into the game's world. There she found happiness in the form of her children and the numerous new friends she has made. In the world of Lidale, she has found a place for herself, a purpose, and happiness. Suddenly, she's interrupted by Luca giving her a flower crown she made. She calls her mother for the first time, and Kana tears up from joy. She decides to take both Luca and Lit somewhere. Having summoned a couple of griffins, she takes them flying through the air to see Lidale from above. She tells them that in this world there are many bad things, but also many fun and joyful things they can look forward to.